Hello, civilized people. There sure is a lot happening in the world, and there is a lot we could talk about. We could talk about how Harley Davidson decided that their customers, who are overwhelmingly older white guys, would sure like it if they started pushing progressive politics, resulting in them creating their own personal Bud Light situation. But that isn't the topic of this video. We could talk about how piss poor management of Starbucks has resulted in the CEO being ousted and being replaced with the CEO of Chipotle, a brand best known for a norovirus outbreak, a salmonella outbreak, and an E. coli outbreak, all within a period of 3 years. But no, that isn't the topic of this video either. We could talk about how Iran and Israel are in the back seat hitting each other again, and the adults have decided to just close the windows and leave the car parked outside in the heat, hoping the situation resolves itself. But no, that would be too much fun. So pray to the internet gods that Twitter isn't getting DDoSed. Declare that every opinion you have had for the past decade has magically changed to conform with the current political environment. And pour yourself a big glass of that extra salty Seabiscuit flavored energy drink you picked up. Because today, on the Goths and Rome podcast, we are going to be discussing the current state of the 2024 presidential election. So, Colton, how you doing?
Eh,
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling well. So, off the cuff, what's your take on the current election year?
I mean, it's no secret. This is half unprecedented, half the same old shit, and then an extra half because we all need thirds. Um, just batshit stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, so to get into the batshit stupid side of this, I'm assuming you were referring to the Seabiscuit flavored energy drink I was referring to.
No, I have no clue what you're referencing.
Seabiscuit the horse.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that might be a little before your time, I'd suppose. But yeah, I mean, normally you get name calling and you get all sorts of things accused during election years. But particularly with the VP candidates, as we covered in another video, apparently there are people that legitimately think that JD Vance wants to bang a dolphin. And not to be, outdone, they also, now there are stories circulating claiming that Tim Walz, the VP pick for Kamala Harris, uh, enjoys drinking horse fluids. I will leave it at that. But yes, none of it makes any sense. All of it is very far out there. The one thing I do find humorous in it all, though, is that humorous and strangely enough, deeply angering is the fact that for some reason, I think it was Politico actually did an article, you know, trying to disprove the Tim Walz thing. And it's like, yeah, there are things that, you can call people out on. But that just seems like an obvious joke. And that I just find annoying is whenever, you see people trying to fact check jokes.
I'm gonna fact check you right now. I think it was PolitiFact, not Politico.
PolitiFact? Okay. See, that was an accurate fact check. That was okay. Somebody screws something up, that's acceptable. If somebody is blatantly lying, that's acceptable. But if, you were to ask me why did the chicken cross the road, and I'm like, you don't have a chicken. Do you speak chicken? That's just stupid. And that seems to be what was going on there. That actually agitated me a bit. That was given seemingly given so much credence. But anyway, so did you watch the Musk Trump
So
discussion? I guess.
I noted it down that I was going to, and then I ended up not doing it because I just figured it's a Twitter live stream. It's gonna have horrible audio, and then it's gonna be full of connection issues. And turns out I was completely correct. And then you talked to me about it, and so this morning I was going to watch it over or listen to it, and I just couldn't do it. I mean, I'm being completely honest with our listeners. I couldn't do it. It was so like I don't know if it was the audio encoding. I've been seeing that, or if it was Trump and he has like dentures that are loose or some weird I don't know theory. But just it was just sounded like everybody was slurring and it was just awful to listen to. And I have really nice headphones, not to brag, and it just sounded awful in my ears, and I just didn't want to do it anymore, so I stopped. And because it wasn't actually like from what I've gathered from reception to it, it wasn't like actually anything new came out really. It was just like a rally, but like one on one to Elon.
Yeah, I mean, considering how much money Elon is throwing at Trump this cycle, it makes sense you do that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I guess it did, you know, sort of herald Trump's return to Twitter.
Yeah, he had a very notable day, just spamming some videos in the beginning of the day, which
Yeah,
they seemed all right. I mean, again, I don't.
these.
Maybe this is just me, but it sounded like the videos he posted, like half of the lines were like from rallies or right, but like the other lines, they felt weird. Like maybe they're done in like a studio and Trump wasn't comfortable with it, or it was like AI voice acted. Either way, like, but the videos were good, well edited. I liked them. Did you watch them?
I don't. I don't think so. If I did, I saw them in passing, and they weren't all that memorable.
Yeah, sounds about right. I mean, they're political ads. How much can you really like or
I,
dislike them?
I mean, we could grade how well they appeal to his fan base, but candidly, uh, I can pretty much guarantee that whatever he said, it appeals to his fan base and his voter base because he's kind of great at that. Credit where it's due. You know,
Sure, I'll
he
let you phrase it that way.
he 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 knows how to play to his audience.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, offhand, where do you see the race right now? Like, who's who's winning, who's losing, why?
I think Trump is still winning, but I think I'm not gonna say the momentum word because I don't believe in that much. I think tides can turn, and that's similar to momentum, but I think it's a different thing where like a tide turning can kind of like fill a pool, and then you can like keep that, after a tide turns. It's probably a
Yeah.
horrible analogy, but but I think Trump has more pools filled, but I think Kamala's making bigger waves, which I don't know how that's possible, and I'm not sure how to defend myself saying that because it's not like she's taken any interviews or like taken any questions from the media or whatever. But
She
there's
has not
been,
talked to the
yeah,
media, and whenever she was confronted on it, she said that she wants to within like the next 24 days. She's given a really big window for herself.
yeah, and that was like a while back she said that, and but I just think that they're spending a massive amount of money, and I'll kind of leak our DMs here a little bit, but I definitely think Kamala is going to. She has the full backing of the Democratic donor base, in my opinion. Robert disagrees with me. I know this. I think she's definitely going to
Yeah.
break some sort of fundraising record in this shortened campaign for her because they need it so bad.
The reason why I don't think she will is because you have seen so much money thrown at Senate candidates on the Democratic side. You have seen it is hard to think of a state right now where the Democratic candidate has less money than the Republican candidate, even in states where that Democratic candidate has no chance of winning.
Yeah, fair, but I think they're gonna be pulling out all the stops for this. That's just my opinion.
I I think that is I think that, you will certainly see some of those donors over contribute, but your pragmatic donors, I think they're going to step back and wait till midterms. Just because if they are a donor who, wants to get the most bang for their buck, that's when they can probably get the most favors in exchange for their donations, which, let's be candid, that happens.
Hmm. Anyways,
Uh,
your view. Your well, I didn't really say the. I just said I thought that Trump was winning. Should I go deeper than that, or do you think that's good enough?
you can go deeper. Go for it.
Well, obviously Trump had that boost from the assassination attempt, which I think is still there, though I think it is muted by today's sort of news cycle where, half of people are like it doesn't really matter and the other half are mega energized by it, right?
And
And
the other third half are actually Google, which don't allow it to be searched, or for a while didn't allow it to be searched.
yes, that meme.
I
But
mean, that was something that happened. I verified that that was actually happening.
no,
I
yeah,
did
it
the
was
test.
definitely happening. It's just, but like I said, his base is so energized to vote for him and so into him that before when liberals or Democrats, whatever you want to call them, they used to say that Trump's fan base was like a cult. I was like, yeah, no, how about you guys? Like pot calling the kettle black. Um, Kind of after seeing like the RNC where like people were showing up with the ear bandage, like I was like, damn, you're not really beating the allegations anymore. And it's fair. Like if he motivates his voter base that much, that just lends all the more credence to the Republicans, switching to this more populism strategy.
It does. I think that the Republican Party as an entity, probably owes a lot to Trump because they wouldn't even be competitive if they were still running Bushes or McCain's
Hmm.
or Romney's. There is just not a market or a taste for that anymore. I mean, look back at 2016. Do you really think a Jeb would have beaten a Hillary?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of pictures where he won all of the states holding a
Yeah,
Corona or something.
yeah.
I love that meme.
Same here, man. There's never an election anywhere in the world that Jeb doesn't win anymore, thanks to that meme.
I wonder if he likes it.
Uh, I kind of doubt it.
I mean, in a way, he's kind of more talked about than his father and his brother, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah, kind of. Now, as for my take on the current election, I don't think it's as close as a lot of people currently seem to think it is. And I kind of want to give a breakdown of why. So, for example, right now you've seen all sorts of polls come out where it's like, oh my God, Harris is up 2, 3, 6 points, what have you. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume most people don't know what a push poll is. If I am running a candidate and they are trailing behind in donations or they are trailing behind in anything because there is a view that they cannot win, there is a valid strategy to make them appear viable even when they really aren't. So, that being said, if you look at the polls that are coming out, these are all paid for by somebody. And so, what you're going to do if you're putting out one of those is you are going to go with registered voters, not likely voters. You are going to intentionally go with that. It's cheaper, so go with it. And you are going to ask for metrics that are favorable to you. And what you've really seen is a lot of polls come out that a lot of registered voter polls that aren't really that we covered this in our polling video. There is a difference between a registered voter, someone who can vote, and a likely voter, which is someone who does. And given that we don't have huge participation compared to a lot of countries in our electoral process in the US, that's important. So, right now, just on recent polling, since the 24th of last month, you have had 9 polls. Excuse me. Yep, 9 polls. All but 2 of them have Kamala in the lead. You have Harvard Harris, which has Trump up by 4. And you have, let me get back to it. And you have Rasmussen that has Trump up by 5. And sort of the secret in this comes down to who are they actually polling. And
You there?
yeah, I'm still here. Sorry about that. I was trying to pull it up real quick and find it quickly. But what you will notice in a lot of these polls is that they aren't polling based upon current metrics. So, for example, the let's look only at the registered voter polls currently, and the oldest one, which has Kamala up by 1, which is a New York Times Siena poll. Of the people interviewed and questioned, 37% were Democrat, 36% were Republican. But the current reality of the national division is that Republicans are at a +1 in a +1 environment, meaning that you would, if you were going to poll 37% Democrats, you poll 38% Republicans. Meanwhile, you have the NPR poll, which I can't find the exact numbers right now, but they overpolled Democrats by like 8 points. They kept Republicans, I believe, at an appropriate like 37%, but they just dumped like another 8% Democrats and ignored independents, which is, you know, how you are getting a lot of these much more favorable polls to Kamala than really makes sense in the current environment. So, given that, I think that the current polling environment is sort of flooded with bad data paid for by campaigns to generally give some oomph to the Kamala candidacy. Whereas the only really recent polling that we have, which is Rasmussen, uh, in a poll of likely voters, has Trump up by 5. And
Which
that
for
appears to
Republicans
be,
is pretty crazy.
huh?
I said for Republicans, it's pretty crazy.
And the reason why Rasmussen is one of the more accurate pollsters. And there are some people that say that they skew conservative. And over the last 2 presidentials, they do skew more conservative in their polling than the others. But at the same point, the results have, as we went over also in our polling video, the results of the elections have repeatedly skewed Republican. I think what 2020 you had 4 states where Trump didn't overperform his polls, and in like 20 some of them he was over the margin of error. So that's just a thing to consider whenever you are looking at polls right now. You could say the same thing was happening on the Republican side back when Romney was running. You saw a lot of push polls to try and, make him look relevant at all, when the reality was that,
You weren't beating the Obama coalition back then.
you weren't beating the Obama coalition. It was just not happening. But going into the reasons why I suspect that this race is not as close as it has been is, first off, the Obama coalition, which appears to have fractured pretty significantly. It was a brilliant move what Obama managed to pull off there. He managed to get, you know, white working class, somewhat conservative folks to vote for him. He managed to get progressives to vote for him. He managed to get all manner of, minority groups to vote for him. And that was certainly enough to win him an election, two elections, rather. And the reality, though, is that during that, you also maintained, your your donor base and things like that. But right now, just because of the progressive stance on the whole Israel Palestine situation, some of the biggest donors for the Democratic Party are Jews. So they appear to be in a situation where they're having to choose between a smaller group of donors and their larger group of voters, which is part of why I don't think they will be breaking many records. Uh, yeah, for a fundraising standpoint, they might do some kind of short window thing where they can make that claim,
I think they already have.
but I don't really like a short window thing. I have trouble believing that by the end of the cycle, Harris will have the same amount, will have raised more than Trump going into this. It's possible. That's something that, I expect I could be proven wrong on, and I wouldn't be surprised if I would be proven wrong on it. But I think it's very possible that for the first time in a while, a Republican presidential candidate winds up with more money to spend than a Democratic presidential candidate. From that, moving on, is just game theory, Colton. We've played the game.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the areas where there is historically not been any entity in this whole country that is slower in adopting any kind of technological or technical advantage than the GOP.
And it's
But
so frustrating.
that appears to have changed. Uh, Trump's daughter-in-law is now running the GOP, which means you now have a GOP that is not openly hostile to the populist movement, which is more than you could say when Ronna McDaniel was running it, given that Ronna McDaniel was Mitt Romney's niece, I believe it was. And, there's open hostility there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in denying that. So you now have a party machine that's actually behind him. You now see him being surprisingly well funded. Surprisingly well funded. You have the assassination attempt, which produced arguably one of the most powerful pictures in American history. You have For the first time, in states where ballot harvesting is legal and mail-in voting is legal, the Republicans actually playing that game, which, considering how close the election was in 2020, that was only what, 20, 25 to 50,000 point, 50,000, excuse me,
Votes.
votes difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. And that's easily made up with systems like that. And I don't see many people who are diehard, Trump supporters in 2016 and then in 2020 changing their minds for Kamala Harris. And I'd say that those who have probably gone to the Kennedy camp, which, as we've seen, Kennedy pulls 3-1 more from the Democrats than he does from Republicans. And that's pretty significant. So you have a Trump with an actual party machine behind him, Trump with a party machine that's actually doing what a political party's supposed to do. And on the left, you have seen polls that are decidedly push polls, given the metrics of who is being interviewed and what data they are collecting. So I still think that this is very much in Trump's camp. And I mean, I'm not going to say that, he's not had things that he's had his flubs and he's had his stupid moments. But I've not seen anything that's really going to change the trajectory of the race from when Biden was in it. Thoughts?
That's fair, and I can't, playing devil's advocate, I can't really pick apart your reasoning any. As this election season seems to be that the Republicans are looking far more fine tuned than they ever have, and behind Trump, like you said, than they ever have. So,
And the other reason I want to throw out why I don't think that the full force of the donor base is behind Kamala, it's because members of the Democratic donor cast have openly said that themselves. We're donating to the Senate. We're donating to the Senate. We're not going to donate to Kamala.
and that should certainly keep the Senate. It's, it's probably going to still be like Republican controlled, but that should at least, keep it so that the Republican candidates can't just coast off of Trump being on the ticket in their kind of battleground states.
Well, the thing is with the Senate, what is it? The Republicans have to take 2 seats in order to get the majority in the Senate, if memory serves me. And Joe Manchin is not going to be up and running again, which I hate to tell you, but I don't think a Democrat is going to win the state of West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
You also have a Democrat currently holding the seat in Montana. It's either Montana or North Dakota, one of those two. And I don't see a Democrat winning the seat either if Trump is on the ballot. Do you?
Um, I don't know enough to confirm or deny, but I'll just say that if they kept their seat during the last time Trump ran, then they have a chance. It might not be a big chance, but there's a
I
chance.
I think they ran in an off year.
Mm,
As like Manchin was up for re-election. They're a 6-year term, so the last time they were up for re-election was 2018.
mm-hmm. And then 2012. So yeah.
And 2018 was a pretty heavy Democrat up year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was plausible. Not to mention that the in that election, I can't remember who he was. I can't even remember their names offhand. But the Democratic candidate in that North Dakota seat, I believe it's Montana or North Dakota. I want to say it's Montana. But the Democratic candidate was outspending their opponent 3-1, and their Republican competitor was basically in a constant state of repeated scandals.
Mm-hmm.
They were not well liked.
I'll take your word for it.
That's just what I recall. It's been a while since I've looked into it too much. As yeah, at this point, Trump tends to have much longer coattails than most, just because he turns out people that don't turn out for midterms. A lot more people that don't turn out for midterms. So, yeah, I am expecting those two seats to flip. I'm expecting the Republicans to get control of the Senate. The House is a bit stranger of an animal, but meh. So the Senate, I think, is sort of a foregone conclusion, even if you wind up with a Kamala presidency. Because going back to the election in general, what do you make of Kamala's complete lack of media appearances?
I think at this point it's kind of turned into like a self-perpetuating cycle of nobody in the media can bring it up because they've coddled her and they've kept her safe from it, right? So by doing that, they would hurt themselves in their own credibility by doing that because they allowed it in the first place and they've become the bubble around her. So it's
Yeah,
nobody's going to push it from that side, and it'll be a very curated experience whenever her first one does happen.
it will be. And I mean, speaking honestly, if I was advising the Harris campaign, my advice would be to keep her as far away from a television appearance as possible. Because Kamala Harris does not have much in the way of public speaking skills or even charisma, really.
Mm-hmm.
She is just not that good at it. I mean, hell, uh, people were talking about the rally she was holding to try and drum up support. It was an event billeted as a free rap concert. And it was funny because you had people in the audience recording stuff. And the moment that Harris came out and the concert was over, people just sort of got up and left.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't speak to enthusiasm for a candidate. Meanwhile, you go to a hell, look at the Trump assassination attempt. You literally had a guy open fire and the audience didn't go anywhere.
True.
That like that's a vast difference. So I mean, what do you think would be do you think that would be sound advice, or do you think that there is something that she should do media related?
No, I think that's pretty sound advice. I mean, didn't they already have one kind of a rally flub? I'm not sure if it was her or if it was Tim Walz that had it, but um, something about obviously they had their gun control thing where they talked about gun control and that was wildly unpopular,
Yeah.
and now she's stealing the no taxes on tips thing from Trump, which
Yeah.
as kind of as an aside, I find it really funny how there's pictures of when Trump said it and the media attacking it, and then now there's pictures of when Kamala says it, and they're not overreacting or anything.
Oh yeah, the double standards are real. I think that it should come as no secret that Trump is very much a threat to the I guess we would call the status quo of American politics and the role of the United States globally. Trump seems much more eager to deal in trade wars than actual wars. So that's something I think should be given how much money there is to be made in that industry and how broadly invested those entities are. Uh, it should come as no surprise whenever you see, the talking heads in the media sort of display some bias, given that those talking heads work for a corporation and that corporation has shareholders.
Hmm.
You know, uh, and I mean that's something as old as time. Well, not as old as time, but I mean, what was it? Jefferson bought his own newspaper to call John Adams a hermaphrodite.
Ah, the
Yeah.
press. You know, looking back on it, just as a citizen of now, I don't. They must have been really, really honest back in the day to be considered the fourth estate because now they're just garbage. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. Here's the exact quote on Adams.
Oh, geez.
A hideous hermaphroditical character, which has neither the force and firmness of a man nor the gentleness and sensibility of a woman. The man legit bought a newspaper, and that's what he published. And I mean, if you think that's bad, he was also Adams's vice president when he did it.
Wasn't that nearly like a constitutional crisis, too?
You had a constitutional crisis surrounding Adams. He was not a very good president. Fine man by most accounts, very fine man, but not a great politician. Well, a decent politician, but not a good executive.
Well, we've gotten a bit off track.
But yes, but I mean, considering that so far we have had accusations of one VP candidate like in hot horse blast, and another, you know, inclined claim another being claimed to enjoy passionate encounters with dolphins and throw pillows. You know, at least there's some historical, context for this. It's not without, historical comparison.
Do you think that just as a total, like with both of them combined, not just like one single candidate, like both VP candidates this time around are just, just at least the rumors about them are just awful, like the worst by far of the batch of all of the VP candidates in American history.
Uh,
Again, not a single candidate, the both of them.
Lord, I'm having to for the VP candidates, it might be the worst. For president, I have to say no. Uh
I
with
mean,
president
just to be simple about it, there were a time when both candidates for president were accused of bestiality.
that's yeah. The only one that I can recall on any candidate that was worse was the pushback against Jackson in the early 1800s.
But again,
and they
that's
were,
only a single. That's not the both of them.
yeah. The Jackson had the worst accusations levied against him, which was surprisingly, I don't think it actually resulted in anybody's deaths, which was unusual with Jackson. Back when they sorted this shit out like men. Yep.
You disagreed about something, you were going to have to fight about it.
Yeah. They had back then they actually accused Jackson of, like, again, like, of all the parallels that are drawn between Jackson and Trump. I mean, both are populists, wild hair, involved in real estate, celebrities before they took office. But both of the biggest accusations levied against them had to do with Russia.
Hmm.
Though, as I recall, the accusations levied against Jackson were that, he kidnapped young women for the Russian delegation to have their way with, which that's pretty heinous.
I could see some parallels with today's accusations with that.
I know exactly. Like history just repeats itself, man.
Or at least it rhymes.
It does. So, do you think that speaking of the VP candidates, do you think that JD Vance is proving to be value added for Trump?
I want to be honest, anytime he's been at a rally, I don't watch much Trump rallies. That might seem, heretical to some, but I
It's repeating the same thing most of the
yeah,
time, so it's understandable.
but
We've got
I
a lot
haven't
of,
really
yeah.
paid attention to whether he's at a rally or not, or if he's even doing them solo or not. But at least in terms of adding controversy, I don't know if Trump and controversy are a bad thing. So
Um, every time he does that, he gets his name in the paper, and whenever his name's in the paper, good, bad, or otherwise, he goes up in the polls.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I can't really. I don't know if someone else getting bad press, even though they're attached to him, is like a. I don't know the net positive negative for that one yet, but at least if it were attacks against Trump, it would just help him. But
Well, see, I'm of the opinion neither is going to have a huge impact,
hmm
with one possible exception on the Tim Wall side, which I'll get
the
into,
veteran vote.
the veteran vote. But over the years, you've sort of seen, unless the state is really close, a VP is not going to have that much of an effect.
hmm
I do think that because of how close it was looking in the polls, and I do view the oversampling of Democrats in the current string of polls, how they are very obviously pushing for a specific result. That's why you get the name push polls. Um, I don't think there's a real risk of Kamala losing Minnesota. I'm not going to rule it out. Uh, Trump has historically overperformed there. He's historically overperformed in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and in Minnesota. So I'm not going to say it's not on the table, but I think it will hold Minnesota. And I'm assuming closer to the election, we'll sort of give our own predictions on where things will go and why we think that. But I actually think that Tim Walz might actually cause a bigger swing in one other state to the negative, and
hmm
that is Virginia.
Oh,
That is actually, I'll throw out Nevada, Virginia. Let's see. Those are the only two states where I can throw to where I see it being that big of a deal.
and why is that?
And because those states both have very high populations of veterans, relatively speaking.
Mm.
One of the reasons behind Glenn Youngkin's success was the fact that they aggressively targeted veterans in the lead up to the Republican gubernatorial contest in Virginia. And you can love it, you can hate it, but veterans and military personnel overwhelmingly swing Republican to the tune of at least 2 to 1, two-thirds of everybody in the military, past or present, vote Republican. And depending on the year, the number two spot can be people who don't think it's appropriate for the military to vote, libertarians or Democrats. We have seen polls over the years. I'm sure you've seen them. I know I have, where you know, there the Democratic Party doesn't have that much support within the military. It's just the way it works. Usually, you know, military, something of a traditional organization, doesn't exactly draw your free spirited progressives, if you know what I mean. But the issue, and this has been rolling around a lot, but the matter of stolen valor with Tim Walz. And to an extent, actually to a notable extent, some of those claims are true. Did he ever attain the rank he claims that he did? Sort of. Are the claims that he, you know, just sort of said, I'm not being deployed when, and left when he wanted to because he was going to run for office, real? Yes, those are real. That is accurate. He never signed his own. Usually, whenever you are discharged, you sign your own papers. He did not sign those. He basically just said, I'm not going, I'm running for office. Even though there is actually precedent for running for office while serving in the military in the form of Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not sure if she was deployed at the time when she was running for office, but I wouldn't be surprised. But I think that is something that could, the portion of the veterans vote that does not turn out because they don't think it's appropriate, I think that is a block that could very well, you know,
Take some offense.
make take some offense to that because he got Walls essentially got news that he was going to be deployed while he was running for office. He said nope, and I mean there is a difference between hey, I'm 22, I'm making use of the perks I get for being in the military to go to college. Uh, I've got 2 months left in, but I need to start classes in a month. Can I get discharged early? And yeah, sure, you'll get that. You will get that in virtually any case. He walked off the job 2 years before his contract ended, before his commitment ended.
How did he get away with that?
Uh, Hell, what was really impressive is that he was still receiving the pension for the job that he had lost, to my understanding. So he was being paid as an E9, even though he essentially walked off of his duties and got demoted back to an E8. Which says shenanigans. Just saying. But still, so his claims about being, a combat veteran are not accurate. His claims that he was a command sergeant major He never actually fulfilled the requirements to be a command sergeant major. So he was offered it, but he had to fulfill those requirements to do it. He never did it. So, and command sergeant major and sergeant major, both E9s, both, I believe, the highest enlisted rank that you can get within the military. I mean, at that point, you're either commanding troops or you are riding the coattails of a general. But that's not the kind of thing that tends to play well with the veteran community. And the reason I cite Nevada and Virginia is just because I believe, as a ratio, Virginia has the highest number of veterans of any state in the nation. And then on top of that, you've got a lot of veterans organizations that are bipartisan. You have PACs, you have, you know, private donors who were former military and want to push forward candidates that improve the lot of veterans, especially a lot of older folks who, remember how veterans were treated after Vietnam. And that shit's probably not going to fly with them, Colt. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, my gut feelings with that as well.
I don't know if it's enough to flip any state, but if it's going to be enough to, like right now, even with the push polls, they've not managed to get Kamala to tie Trump in Nevada. Virginia, I've not even bothered to look at polls from there. The moment that I saw the magical overnight swing, I knew polls were going to be kind of worthless for a while. But Virginia, I think Virginia might be a little more in because of it.
A little more in play, you said?
Little more in play. The was it? Actually, I'm going to throw out one other because there is something else going back to the topic of, advising the Harris campaign. I've got a very real question for whoever the hell is managing that. Why the hell are you investing millions of dollars into Mississippi and Florida? Colton, what
Hmm.
advantage can the Harris campaign gain by campaigning in Mississippi?
None, but I'm going to throw out my own theory, and it might be libel. Maybe the campaign advisor or the campaign strategist or whatever just has a cousin or something that they want to be gainfully employed for a couple months.
Entirely possible. I'll agree to that.
Otherwise, they have no reason and they're just wasting money.
And the same with Florida. In just given the way that in states that have, you know, partisan registration where you can register as a Republican, register as a Democrat, one of the best ways to determine fairly easily who can win is to look at the number of those registrations. Republicans tend to turn out at a higher rate. If Republicans overall have 80% or more of what the Democrats have, then it will be competitive. If Republicans have more, Republicans will win. And right now, you have 1 million more registered Republicans in Florida than Democrats. That's nuts.
Credit to them.
And what's amazing is that one has happened organically. There was a short-lived project there trying to to Republican voter registration that utterly collapsed. What, 5 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
And like that had millions of dollars and it utterly collapsed. And what's amazing is that this appears to be organic. This appears to be very organic.
I think it's just demographics. People moving from all over the country. Because I think in a lot of ways, Florida is the new Texas of the central of republicanism in the country.
Yeah, and Texas appears to be getting redder despite Beto O'Rourke's efforts. I expect Texas to be more red this cycle than it was previously. And yeah, actually, that's another point worth bringing up. Is right now across, I believe it's every single swing state that has partisan voter registration. Republican voter registration is outpacing Democratic voter registration. 6 years ago, I would not believe that was possible. Not organically.
Mm-hmm.
But what made it impressive and what really told me that it was happening organically is, do you know what provoked it in Pennsylvania offhand?
No, go ahead and tell me.
Mandatory voter registration at DMVs.
Hmm.
Mandatory voter registration at DMVs, which humorously, and probably a failure on Shapiro's part as governor of Pennsylvania, he was the one that pushed for that. So that appears to have bit him in the ass. And as I understand it, in I think it's the last 3 months, there are now 3 counties in Pennsylvania that have flipped from majority Democrat to majority Republican in voter registration. Counties which, unless I'm very much mistaken, are in areas that Joe Biden won, like the Scranton area.
Old Scranton Joe.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, honestly, that was sort of what carried Biden and allowed him to sort of keep some semblance of the Obama coalition together. But Kamala doesn't have that. So, like, I'm not trying to, say Kamala can't win, but I'm going back to the original topic we were going on with this. I don't see anything measurable having changed that justifies the sudden take that Kamala is winning. And in fact, I'm seeing a lot to indicate that it's part of a campaign strategy to try and fundraise.
Gotta love gaslighting.
Oh, so much gaslighting. Man. So, any other thoughts or news surrounding these events that you think might either be overblown or is going to have an impact?
No, we've kind of covered everything. I kind of wanted to bring up swing state stuff, but we kind of just talked about that, and we also talked about a little bit of it previously too. So, yeah, we're kind of, at least from my point of view. What about you?
Yeah, I think that we've mostly talked about everything. So it feels like we've not really discussed much, but it's sort of a big picture issue where it's kind of it's a weird conversation, I admit.
Do
Uh
we ever have
it's
normal
one where,
conversations?
God, I still remember the time you're like, oh, the first guy that domesticated a sheep. What the hell is these people? Everybody's wondering what this man's doing with a sheep. Sorry about that. cough. But yeah, that conversation still resonates. But anyway, to those of you still listening, thank you for having done so. We hope our insights have been informative, and if not informative, maybe entertaining. So, Colton, you ready to tell everybody goodbye?
Yep.
All right. Everybody take care.
Have a good one, folks.